No matter the circumstances you face, God is still dreaming big for your days ahead. This is the message of Kathie Lee Gifford's latest book entitled It's Never Too Late. Join us today for the special edition of A View from the Wall.
Join I Am a Watchman Ministries Managing Editor Joe Kerr with co-host Dylan Burrows, bringing you a fascinating discussion regarding the importance of Bible prophecy and Christian living today as it relates to our responsibility as believers to be watchmen. This is A View from the Wall.
Welcome to A View from the Wall. I'm Dylan Burrows here with co-host Joseph Kerr, and we're excited to bring you one of our favorite people today. Kathie Lee Gifford joins us to talk about her new book, It's Never Too Late, with the fabulous subtitle, Make the Next Act of Your Life the Best Act of Your Life. You may know her from Live with the Regis and Kathie Lee, or as the co-host of The Today Show. She's a 4-time Emmy Award winner and New York Times bestselling author of numerous books. In fact, we'll be joined by her co-author, Rabbi Jason Sobel, from one of her other books next week. But today we want to focus on the message of her latest title that emphasizes how God could rewrite your story. Kathie Lee Gifford, welcome to A View from the Wall.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, you guys. I really, really appreciate it. Bless you today.
Thank you so much for being with us again. And as we dive right in, the story of your life has been largely lived in the spotlight of America. You include amazing inside accounts of some of your experiences you've lived through. But to start off by telling us what inspired you to write your latest book, It's Never Too Late.
Well, I was retiring. That's the word they kept using when I was leaving the Today Show. Kathie Lee's retiring, right. Or Kathie Lee, is reinventing her. And they'd use all these different words. And I went, I'm not comfortable with any of those labels. I mean, first of all, I try to live my life in a godly way. I try to read the Bible. I have my whole life. And I don't remember one person of note in the Bible that retired. They just kept doing what God told them to do until they dropped dead.
Yes.
That's what I want to be.
Love that.
When God's finished with me, I'll know because he'll take me home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm 67 now. I feel like I'm 30. God has blessed me with enormous strength and health, and I'm so grateful for that. But I'm also being more creative now than I've ever been. And that's saying a lot because I've always been a type A personality.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've done 20 books, written 6 musicals. I've lost track of everything except for the fact that I know my Redeemer lives.
Yes.
I know I wake up knowing that. I go to sleep knowing it. I wake up ready for an adventure, and I can't wait to get to it because I have a long, long history of walking with Jesus, but mostly stumbling. People go, so you've lived such a faithful life. I said, you don't know me. God has been faithful to me, not the other way around. And the times that I actually was faithful to him was because he gave me the strength to be faithful. I have no delusions about who I am and what I am. And I am a child of God. If you want to give me a label, give me child of God. That I am. I'm the daughter of a king.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take all of those. I'm wrapped in righteousness. Yes, although I don't deserve to be. I am drenched in grace. Yes. I mean, tell me all those positive, wonderful things because it's the truth. And I let that guide my life. And as a result, I live in joy, even when my circumstances are less than, what I would like. Like on the day that I found my husband, dead on the ground in our sunroom of a heart attack. I held him and rocked him with tears of joy flowing down my cheeks. Because it was an answer to prayer. I had always prayed that the Lord would take him home before he had to be dependent on. Frank was a very proud man. He never wanted to be a burden to his family. He never wanted to have people have to care for him in his most intimate ways. And he just didn't want to be alive if he couldn't fully be alive. And he had CTE. His brain was riddled with that as a result of his football injuries through the years.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been struggling with it was 1 week shy of his 85th birthday, and he was sharp as a tack in so many ways. And still, he'd gotten the best medical checkup in years the week before. So it was literally God's time to take him home. And what so many people are afraid of death, you guys. I'm sure you might be, or you know people that are. But
yes.
When you know somebody has a walking, living relationship with the living God, you know where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
The best day of a believer's life is the day they go home to God. The way Frank went, the EMTs that came to my house said, Kathie, he never hit the floor. He never knew it. He saw Jesus, and Jesus took his breath away. And I can live joyfully with that fact.
Well, that's fabulous.
We're going to take a quick break before continuing our conversation with Kathie Lee Gifford. Stay with us here on A View from the Wall.
From I Am a Watchman Ministries, here's today's I Am a Watchman Minute.
Ephesians 4:29 notes that we are to let our every word be useful for edification. Edification means to build up or benefit. Sometimes we use our words to hurt. Sometimes we just want to vent so we feel better. Sometimes we want to win the argument more than we want to win the person. Still, always, our words should edify. Self-control is the key. Thankfully, self-control is an attribute of the Spirit, and the Spirit will help you use your words to edify. Growing in the faith is a process. The I'm a Watchman ministry is here to help. Visit imawatchman.com to share a prayer request, a question, or to request a free devotional ebook today. The I'm a Watchman ministry stands ready to answer questions and pray for you.
Be bold, be faithful, be a watchman. IamAWatchman.com.
Welcome back to A View from the Wall. As Joe and I continue our conversation with Kathie Lee Gifford and her new book, It's Never Too Late, we want to step behind the scenes of her celebrity appearances and discuss some of the difficult times people face and that Kathie has faced in her own life.
The title, It's Never Too Late, could go a lot of different directions. Explain how you got that title and what people can expect in the book.
Well, I didn't come up with the title. My publisher did. They really wanted me to write this book. I didn't want to write it then. I don't want to write the one I'm writing right now. I don't love writing books. I love writing music, songs. I love writing oratorios. I love writing Broadway shows. I love that. But writing books like I'm writing now, it's solitary, and they tell you it's got to be, 50,000 words, and you get caught up sometimes in the, how many words have I got?
Right.
And I like to do things out of total passion. But my publisher and my good friend, Matt Bacher from HarperCollins, said, Kathie, there are so many people that look to you after all these years for life lessons.
Yes.
And I know that to be true. God's used me. God gave me a platform in the so-called secular world, just as much as he said, Kathie, you're going to be a missionary in Africa. It's my calling. It was my calling since I was a little girl. And God has used me I don't personally separate the secular from the spiritual in my life. I am one person. I happen to work in a business that is considered secular. But I never made the distinction myself. I was always the same person wherever I was working, whether it was in a soap opera called Days of Our Lives, or whether it was doing Name That Tune, which was my big break in this business going back, or whether I was doing Carnival Cruise Line commercials. God puts his people everywhere. And I tell a lot of the stories in the book of how God used me or other people, he used them in my life, because I happen to be someplace where you don't meet churchgoers.
Right.
So when I become a good friend of Al Pacino's, it's because I met him through my industry, or Craig Ferguson, or so many of my friendships, Dolly Parton, who happens to be a great believer in Jesus. But this is my world. And I even came to know Jesus as my Savior at a movie theater. And I was told, growing up by some people that, movies were evil. You can't go to a movie theater. You can't go to this. You can't. And I said, why not? God owns the airwaves. God owns everything.
That's right.
Just win. Now, things are used for evil purposes, but I went to a movie that the Billy Graham organization had produced back in, I was 12, so it was like early 60s. And it was called The Restless Ones. And I went forward and asked Jesus into my heart in a movie theater. Why? Because God met me right where I lived. All my life, I wanted to be an actress and a singer. And I didn't know I wanted to be a writer, but I was writing even then. I didn't even know it was a gift that I had. And so, my sister pointed out to me the other day, she said, Kathie, you wrote and produced and starred in in the first grade, a book you had read, and you went to your first grade teacher and asked if you could put it on and star in it. And I said, I did. And then she reminded me, and there were pictures. And I went, oh my gosh, I was even doing it when I was 6.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a book, by the way, that would be banned today. But it was one of my favorite little books as a child. I'm not even going to say it because, but it's sad what it's come to. I mean, but I was told many, many times, especially in my early adult career in show business, that how dare you go into show business and call yourself a Christian? And I just thought, you know what? God is going to use me with people who would never go to church, never pick up a Bible, never go to a Billy Graham crusade, but they'll work with me. And just by sharing life and loving people, they will come to know the truth of Yeshua, the Messiah. I just knew it. And I let anybody dissuade me, ever. Nobody's going to tell me what God's will is in my life. Nobody. Not even my own parents. And they didn't try to, thank God. They knew they had an unusual daughter, to say the least. They knew that I was crazy in a good way. Crazy. They couldn't get me to come in the house if I was putting on a carnival. They couldn't. I'd go for 3 weeks writing a book when I was in my first book I wrote when I was 20. Never think it would be published, but I think I slept 2 hours a night for 3 weeks writing a book. I don't know why I'm made that way, but God does. And each individual is made so uniquely and custom made for God's kingdom. I left the university I went to as a young adult because they were cookie cuttering us all into believing the same way, worshiping the same way. And I said, that goes against everything I know about God, my creator. You're not going to undo all the good the Lord has made in me and done in me. So I fit some sort of an idea of what you think a young Christian woman is. Who makes these people the arbiters of our faith? And so I just know I'm God's child, and he's my father, and he's going to raise me up and use me for his purposes if I trust him. Because when I heard the voice of Jesus when I was 12 in that movie theater, he said, I love you, Kathie. And if you'll let me, I will make something beautiful out of your life. And I went forward, and it wasn't religious talk. And yet it was the most deeply spiritual thing I could hear from my creator. And I was raised, my father was Jewish. And so I was raised in a Judeo-Christian home, but we didn't really believe very strongly in anything except we believed in God. And we knew that Jesus was a Jew. And I always felt very, very close to Jesus because of my Jewish heritage. But I didn't know him intimately as my Savior and my best friend. But going forward after that day, when I was 12, that began the journey of a lifetime, which continues all these years later. Yeah.
We have to break away for just a moment. Stick with us for more here on A View from the Wall.
The rapture can happen at any time. You may be ready, but are your friends and family spiritually prepared for the coming of the Lord? What will happen to those left behind? We've created a new resource to help you help them. It's called the Rapture Kit. Included in the Rapture Kit is a Bible and vital information on what the rapture is and how to prepare for what's to come. The Rapture Kit also includes 8 books on prophecy, apologetics, the Christian walk, and being a watchman for the Lord, plus a number of video and audio teachings, all preloaded on an 8-gigabyte flash drive. Become more strategic and active in your witnessing. Warn the lost about the coming rapture, and help individuals in the post-rapture world be drawn to Christ, equipping them to become the next generation of ministry leaders. Learn more and order at rapturekit.org.
Welcome back to A View from the Wall as Joe and I talk with Kathie Lee Gifford. We talked a little bit about some of the success you've had, but there's also this role that your faith plays in helping you persevere through tough times. You talk about that in the book. Success and perseverance often appear in the same sentence, especially in Hollywood. What role did perseverance play in your early acting career, and how was your faith an important part?
Oh, by that time when I moved to LA in the mid 70s to pursue my acting and music careers, I guess I was 20. I don't know. Yeah, but maybe, yeah, about 22. And that's when I came up against, so many people. There were about 15 of us that were young performers who really did believe that God was calling us to a career in the world of the arts. And there was a pastor who was so precious to me, and Paul, Pat, and Shirley Jones. I went to I knew they were Christians, and they had a Bible study for young performers. And I was talking to Pat about it the other day on the phone. I said, Pat, you were so instrumental in my life. I was so young, and there was so little place to go to be encouraged in the arts, because back then, nice Christian kids didn't do it. And the pastor that I loved, and is still a precious, dear friend of mine, was Pastor Jack Hayford of Church on the Way. And so I think I was able to persevere during a rough start in my career. I gave myself a year to try to make it a living at it. And I was about a week shy of having to go back home with my tail between my legs and say, I guess I didn't hear the Lord right. When it finally did open up for me. And I think out of 5 commercials I tried out for, I got 4, and I was able to do 3. And that then I led to a singing in Las Vegas with a show. And then I started working on a sitcom it wasn't a sitcom, it was a soap opera called Days of Our Lives. And I was making a living at it. It wasn't a great living, and I certainly wasn't bound for stardom, but I was doing what my daddy had said to me, you guys, back then. Honey, find something you love to do and figure out a way to get paid for it. He was so smart that way. Instead of saying, you got to be this, you got to become this so you can make a living, and superimposing his dreams on my own. My parents' first choice would not have been to let their daughter go off to Hollywood alone at the age of 18 and live alone and struggle. But my daddy also used to say to me, I love you too much to deny you the privilege of making mistakes. So I was blessed with unbelievably wise, loving parents who knew I was strange. I didn't fit the cookie cutter mold of anybody. I was always a little nerdy about a lot of things. I missed my high school graduation because I wanted to go to Israel to go to attend the First Jerusalem Conference on Biblical Prophecy. No 17-year-old kid wanted to do that but me. So in that way, I was quirky. But I did, and I became friends with Anita Bryant because of that. I babysat for her children while I was there, and then she brought me to her house to work and into her home and be her assistant. And anything she couldn't do or didn't want to do, she said, but I do have this young girl living with me that would be good for whatever. And she would always plug me in to stuff she wouldn't do or couldn't do, including singing at the one of the inaugurals, at one of the presidential inaugurals. So there I was. All of a sudden, I'm like Waldo, you guys. You know the Waldo books where you got to look for, like, what is Waldo? I'm Waldo. And then I married Frank. Why did I marry Frank? He was the most sought out bachelor in certainly New York. He was still young, super successful, beautiful man, and he falls in love with me. Why? I was 23 years younger than him to the day, and then I get on Name That Tune, and before that, and I knew God would use me, and I knew God loved me, but I never dreamed that the doors would open to me that did, or the opportunities that came to me would happen. And that I would someday be sitting in my garden, like I talk about in the book, with my friend Al Pacino. I don't, and he is, and I love him. Or that I would, Kevin Costner would be, Frank and I would be on vacations with him and his family. I mean, Regis and I were a lot alike in that even when we were extremely successful, the most successful people on television there for a while, we still wondered and looked at each other and said, can you believe we get to do this for a living? There was always a sense of wonderment because I knew that I was never the prettiest girl at an audition. I was never the smartest in a room. I was never the most talented actress. And most people told me that all the time. I got nothing but the rejection after rejection after rejection. But I would pray about it. I said, Lord, well, if this one isn't right for me, keep going until you tell me I'm wrong, and provide for me, and I'm just going to trust you. And I had my down days. I mean, my gosh, I have cried more tears in my lifetime. But I know that God collects them in a bottle too, because they're precious to Him. So God gave me everything I needed to survive in that world, that cutthroat, brutal world. And He kept my skin tender towards people it needed to be tender towards. And it made me thick and hardened against the people whose opinions do not matter at all. And that's a hard juggling act.
There's advice for anyone in this book, Kathie Lee, young or old. You say growing old is not for the faint of heart, and we're about the same age, so I understand what you're talking about there. You've accomplished a lot in your lifetime. Is there anything else that's still on the unfinished business list for you?
Oh, my goodness, yes. I'm working on 3 new oratorios that I'm in the final stages of editing. I just directed those in Texas and in Utah because I couldn't get to Israel. Like the God Who Sees, which had such huge success 2 years ago, continue telling the biblical stories that are so profound and so ripped from the headlines even today. And so that's been a thrill. And I love directing now. I'm a pig in mud. I've discovered one of my favorite things in the world to do. I'm working on producing several films with my son. That's very exciting. Writing a new book called The Jesus I Know, honest conversations with people through that I know and love, but that are very different from myself and have a completely different concept of Jesus. I think we've become so polarized in the world we live in today that we cancel people and we write them off, and we do so many unkind things to people that we think are wrong, who don't believe the way we do. And we have the right to believe that they're wrong, but that we do not have the right to hate them. We do not have the right to be cruel or unkind to them. Because if we say we are followers of Yeshua, we have no rights like that. He says, love one another as I have loved you. Treat your neighbor as you treat yourself. Go out of your way like the Good Samaritan did. Do good and live long and prosper in the land. I mean, if you call yourself a believer and a follower and a disciple of Jesus, then we're going to have days where we are far from perfect. And I have those days every day. But He will be, if we keep Him first and foremost in our minds, in our hearts, He will guide us. We will hear His voice. He will unveil and reveal His will and His purpose for us. And He will equip us with everything we need for the journey. So I'm in the most joyful season of my entire life now. People used to say to me, how could you leave your dream job with Regis and your dream job with Hoda? It was hard to leave them because I love them. And I still talk to Hoda all the time. And I miss Regis, who went on to be with Jesus, this last August. But I'm doing my dream job now. This is what I was born to do. And this is what I've worked hard my whole life to earn the right to do, which is to be my own boss, write my own story, write my own oratorios, produce my own films, live my life as authentically and as powerfully as God always intended me to do. And I'm so grateful to be at a point in my life now where I really, truly don't care what other people think. That's the best weight you can lose in this world, is the weight of other people's opinions mattering to you. Only God's ultimately, His opinion is the only one that ultimately matters. My friends, my children, of course, but it's a small group of people, and that in itself is a freeing thing. So I wake up in the morning and I said, may I please you today, Lord? May you be pleased that I have put you first. I've done the best I can do, and may you lay me down to sleep tonight, knowing that I have not wasted. I have not wasted any good and precious gift you've given me, because that alone gives you joy. To wake up in the morning, have a pulse and a purpose, is one of God's greatest gifts to us. And Paul Newman, who is not a man of my faith, but he taught me that, and I was privileged to be his friend. You see what I'm saying? We all share this planet, And our common ground is truly our sacred ground. We are to love one another as Jesus loved us and died for us. And my whole purpose in life, and for the rest of my life until my dying breath, will be to teach people one thing. And that's what God taught me and Billy Graham and different people I've been blessed to love and know in my life. God loves you with an all-consuming fire of a love. And he just wants you to know that and walk with him and trust him and have the life he dreamed for you to have. And it's never too late to reach out and grab his hand.
Thank you, Kathie, for being with us today. Such an honor to have you with us. We'll have to do this again sometime soon.
I want to thank you for having me so much. God bless you all.
God
Shabbat
bless you
shalom.
too. Shabbat shalom.
Okay.
For more information, we want to encourage people to check out KathieLeeGifford.com. That's KathieLeeGifford.com, and pick up more about the book that she's talked about here today and her other resources. Let me say again to our listeners how much we appreciate you joining us for today's program. We want you to know we are here to serve you. Listen again at IamAWatchman.com, and join us next time on A View from the Wall.
A View from the Wall, in association with I Am a Watchman Ministries, exists to equip a worldwide audience with biblical truth, sharing it with others, and being prepared for Christ's imminent return. The team seeks to encourage, inspire, and equip watchmen for such a time as this. For information about the ministry and upcoming events, visit IamAWatchman.com. A View from the Wall is made possible by the team of dedicated pastors, editors, and the many contributors of I Am a Watchman Ministries. To support our efforts, give online at IamAWatchman.com and click on the donate button. Thanks for listening, and join us again next time on A View from the Wall.